Well, an unthinkable crime that crippled the nation 12 years ago. 15-year-old Daniel Marsh accused of killing and mutilating the bodies of an elderly couple who lived near his father's home in California. He was arrested after bragging about what he had done to his friends and later confessing. CBS correspondent Erin Moriarty explores the case several years after the murders in the latest 48 Hours podcast titled 15 Inside the Daniel Marsh Murders. And Erin is joining us now to talk about the episode. So, Erin, we thank you for chatting with us here in Boston. For people who are unfamiliar with the case, I love the opening because it starts with this anonymous call to law enforcement. Someone is claiming that they know the killer, that they're actually friends with the killer, and they say that this person confessed to them. So what transpires from here on?
Thanks, Breana, for even talking about this. I mean, I know that some people don't even want to know that people like Daniel Marsh exist, but they do. And that's what we do. We explain how hard it was to even catch this guy. There was a couple, a beloved couple who had very large family. Chip Northup and his wife, Claudia Maupin, were murdered, and nobody could understand why. So, of course, investigators look at the family. The family members have no time to grieve because suddenly they're being investigated. Because when you have a violent crime like this, you think it's got to be someone who knows this couple. In fact, it was a stranger. And as you mentioned, Breana, the only reason why they found this person was because he had been bragging, and one of his friends finally decided to call 911, was afraid of Daniel Marsh himself, but came forward. And so our podcast then takes you through the amazing interrogation that a FBI special agent performed with Daniel Marsh, getting him from denying to suddenly admitting he did it, and then finally admitting he even thought about wanting to kill other people. And then we take you through the trial and how hard it was to convict someone like this, and how Daniel Marsh claimed that he was insane. And then how when California started changing the law that might allow Daniel Marsh to get out of prison, how this family that had been so damaged by his actions fought to keep him in. You can't do this story in a single hour on 48 Hours. And it is an important case to kind of describe how it came out.
Erin, you've worked on so many cases over the years. Was there anything about this case? What was the most shocking thing to you? I think for me, just reading over what I have so far, it's just the fact that this was a 15-year-old boy.
Well, 15-year-old, but also the fact at that young age, he planned this murder so well. He put tape on the bottom of his shoes so he wouldn't leave shoe prints. He dressed so he wouldn't leave any DNA. This was a serial killer in the making who would have been able to pull off these crimes if he had not talked about it. So I think that's what scared me so much. One of the producers who worked with me on 48 Hours when we first did the story said, "I will never leave a window open again." I mean, that is what strikes you. But then what really stays with me really is the number of heroes who have worked to keep him behind bars, who investigated the case, the family members who stay on this, even though, as Claudia's granddaughter said to me, Sarah Rice, I get PTSD every time I talk about this and have to get back into it. So that also really has stayed with me.
We know you're re-examining the case years later. Is there anything that you discovered or uncovered in your reporting that we didn't know about before? Yes,
that's pretty interesting. So we also have interviewed the psychiatrist who had been on the defense team for Daniel Marsh. And one of the most interesting parts of this is how his attitude, his feelings about whether Daniel Marsh can be rehabilitated have evolved over time, and that he was kind enough to talk about that. So there is a lot of new. Plus, I mean, Daniel Marsh will be eligible for parole in 12 years. This case still has a lot of relevance.
And you've been talking about how difficult it's been for family members, knowing that California has these new laws and that is a possibility. What kind of reactions are you getting from the victims' families just with the podcast coming out?
Well, I think they want people to know about how these laws, for most young offenders, they can be rehabilitated. And that's why those laws were passed. But I think Claudia and Chip's family members want people to know that there are some people who may not be able to be rehabilitated. And so those laws are too, in their opinion, too sweeping, cover too many cases. And they want voters and people to think about that. There are people like Daniel Marsh, thankfully, according to Dr. Soulier, the psychiatrist who's part of this podcast, there aren't a lot. He is rare, but they do exist.
Based off your conversation with the psychologist and the insight that you got from him, do you believe that Daniel Marsh could be rehabilitated?
Well, nobody knows for sure. This is a very gray area, but I would be concerned, especially when you think about one thing I had heard from this psychiatrist was had killed, and enjoyed it, how do you get that out of his system, even over time? And that's a concern. And then also the idea that psychopaths, and he has been diagnosed as a psychopath, are manipulative, are charming. So how do you know? I have my concerns. That's why we're doing this podcast.
Well, Erin, your reporting is extraordinary. I can't wait to listen to the whole thing. Thank you for talking with us here in Boston. CBS News' 48 Hours podcast with Erin Moriarty is available on Apple Podcasts and everywhere that you get your podcasts, and new episodes drop every Wednesday. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you so much.